Okay, guys, I'm going to walk you through how to make the pumpkin so you have this video to go back and refer to. I'm going to try to do it as quickly as I can so it's not too long. And I'm going to do it specifically like the directions say. So I'm going to start out by, first of all, I'm going to name my project. I'm going to call it Tori Bothy Pumpkin. And as you can see, that name has already popped up because I've tried this a couple times already tonight and I've had to start over because I've messed up. And that's okay. So hopefully this one works out. So I'm going to start with a sphere and put on my work plane. I'm going to zoom in on my work plane here a little bit. And then I'm going to make these dimensions. I'm going to turn the 20s to 40s. So 20 wide, 20 long, 40 long, 40 wide, 40 long. And then I'm going to do 80 high. So there's 80. So now I kind of have this oval shape. So I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to use this button right here to duplicate. So it's going to duplicate it in the exact same position it was in. So I'm going to duplicate it. You can't really tell there's another one there, but there is. So I'm going to move that 40 millimeters to the right. And the easiest way to do that is I'm going to hold down my shift button and I'm going to hit my right arrow 4 times. That moves it 10 millimeters at a time. So I'm going to hold down shift. I'm going to hit my right arrow 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know you're going to think, well, that's weird. They're not connected. I thought the same thing too, but I just figured out how to do this. So we're going to walk through it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to group those 2 spheres together like that. Now I'm going to duplicate this 3 more times. So I have a total set of 4. And I'm going to do it the exact same way. So this is selected. It's selected because you can see all those boxes. I'm going to hit this box 4 times. I'm sorry, 3 times for a total of 4. 1, 2, 3, 3. So that's a total for 4 total sets. So now I have to rotate these. I'm going to rotate these on the XY plane, which is this, which means they're going to turn them around right to left. So I'm going to select one of my eggs. One of my spheres. I'm going to do it like that. And I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees clockwise. And in order to do that, I'm going to click on this little arrow. I'm going to click in this box. And to do clockwise, I need to make it negative 45. So it turned it that way. I'm going to hit this one. And now I'm going to turn it counterclockwise 45. And I'm going to hit in this little box again, and I'm going to type in the number 45. And it moved that one that way. Now, I've got to find my other one, so I'm going to click this one right here in the middle. You can see where it's the square, and I'm going to move this one 90 degrees. So I'm going to type in that box 90. So if I switch to my top view, there is my perfect little pumpkin shape. So now I'm going to group that. My next step is bringing in the center of my pumpkin. So I'm going to bring in a cylinder. I'm going to keep him solid. And I'm going to make its dimensions 40 long, 40 wide, and 74 high. So here's my boxes. I'm going to change my 20s to 40s. Zoom out to get my other one here. And then 74 high. Zoom back in here a little bit. I'm going to grab these 2 and I'm going to align them centered. These are all axes. So this is our y-axis, this is our x-axis, and this is actually called our z-axis. So I'm going to center this y, x, and y. And now I'm going to group that. And now I'm going to make a duplicate of this pumpkin. So I'm going to use that same button. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to move one of them out of the way for later on. So what this is going to do is be the top and bottom of our pumpkin. So in order for them to fit correctly, they have to be identical. So I'm going to move that guy out of the way. So now I need to cut a hole in the middle of this pumpkin so it's like a hollow shape when it's done. So I'm going to highlight this, or I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to bring a sphere in. I'm going to make this a hole by hitting that button right there. I'm going to make this guy 71 in all areas, so it's a round sphere that's 71 millimeters around. So now I'm going to select this guy. So I can do this by selecting, holding down shift, and select that guy. Now I'm going to align these two things. So I'm going to align y-axis center, x-axis center, and I actually need to do z-axis center. So it's in the middle of my pumpkin and it doesn't cut a hole in the bottom of my pumpkin. So you can see that right up top. And now I'm going to attach those. I'm going to group those. So now I have that pumpkin. So now what I want to do is I'm going to cut off the top part of that pumpkin. So I'm going to kind of move him over here a little bit. I'm going to bring in a box. I'm going to make the box a hole. And I'm going to make it 100 degrees long and 100 degrees wide and 69 millimeters, 69 millimeters tall. So I'm going to hit my home button here. Okay. Actually, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see all of this. Now I'm going to duplicate this box. So the same way I do it here, hit that button. I'm going to move one over. Let me Control Z that because that's not what I meant to do. Let me click off. I'm going to Control Z, or I'm going to move this box back here with that pumpkin. So now I want to cut the top part of this pumpkin off. So I need to raise this box off of the work plane. So I'm going to click on it, and this little black cone here, this little triangle, is what we can use to raise it. So I can grab it and drag it up and down. The easiest way, though, is to click in this bottom right. It has to be this bottom right box, and I'm just going to put in 69. That's going to move it 69 millimeters off my work plane. And if I hit my front view, you can see that. So now we are going to select this box and this pumpkin here. We are going to align the two. We're going to do center here, and we're going to do center there. And now I'm going to group them, and it's going to cut the top of my pumpkin off. There we go. So now we have this perfect little pumpkin with a hole in it, and you can see that it's hollow on the inside. So the next step is we are going to put pegs on, or knobs on, our pumpkin to hold our top on. So I'm going to move this guy over here a little bit. But in order to build on top of this, we have to add a work plane. This is just like we did on our nameplates. We did that, our name tags, we did that to put our name on. So I'm going to grab my work plane here. I'm going to drag it on top of my pumpkin. Okay. Now I'm going to bring out a cylinder, and we want a solid cylinder. I'm going to bring them right there. We're going to make this cylinder 6 by 6 by 6. So 6 by 6 by 6. There we go. Now I'm going to align this guy here, center by center. Now I'm going to duplicate this guy. Same thing, right? I'm going to use this one so it's right on top of the other one. I'm going to move one right 24 centimeters and the other one left 24 centimeters. I'm going to do that by hitting the arrow, my right arrow, my left arrow. So I want to move it 20. So I can do shift and hit my arrow twice. 1, 2, and then I'm going to move it 4 more. So I'm going to hit my arrow 4 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just moved it 24. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to do shift 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are my little knobs on top of my pumpkin. They look really close to the edge. So I'm going to look down, and they're not. They're pretty far off. But let's say I'm not comfortable with that. Well, I can move each one over 1 more, but I just need to remember to do my top the same way. So if I wanted to do that, I can move this one over 1 and this one over 1 for a total of 25 centimeters. So when I do my top, I need to make sure I move each one over 25 centimeters. So now I want to select all of those pieces and group them together. So now I have a solid pumpkin. So I'm going to remove my work plane. I'm going to hit that button and I'm going to hit somewhere just off to the right and my work plane is gone. And now I'm done with the bottom for right now. So I'm going to move him out of the way. I'm going to move this pumpkin back to the center. And I'm going to move this box back to the center. Now all I need to do is I'm going to align my pumpkins. I'm going to align it center and center here. And I'm going to group them. And now I have the top of my pumpkin. So I want to move this. You can tell he's kind of floating up here in air. So I'm going to move him to my work plane by simply hitting the letter D. Oh, not that one. Sorry. I hit the wrong letter. I'm going to hit D and it drops him to my work plane. So now we need to add the holes to hold those knobs. So I am going to drag in a cylinder. Now this hole needs to be a little bit bigger than the knobs we made. So we're going to give him the dimensions and we're going to make him whole so he cuts in. We're going to make him 8 by 8. So my width and my length are 8 and my height is 7. So 8 here, 8 here, and then 7 for my height. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to align them center by center, and you can see I'm hanging out right there. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to click that guy right there, and I'm going to duplicate him. So now I'm going to move this guy to my right 25 because I did 25 on my top. So I'm going to hold down shift. I'm going to hit my right arrow, 1, 2. Now I'm going to move it over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go, right there. And now I'm going to hit this guy over to the left, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. We have our 2 holes. It's all right that you see them a little bit. No big deal. So now I need to add my, oh, nope, I'm sorry. I need to attach those. I got a step ahead of myself. So I need to attach those to cut in my holes. All right. So now I need to add my vine in the middle. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom over here. And I'm going to find Diamond. I'm going to bring him in out here. I'm actually going to move this guy out of the way a little bit so he's out of my way. And I need to bring in, I'm going to go all the way back up to the top and bring in a box. And this time I'm just going to grab my whole box, the one that's already a hole. I'm going to change the height of my box to a 7. Sorry. To a 7. Now I'm going to align these 2 things. Center and center. You may say, why are you doing that? Well, if I look at the front, you can see the diamond has this little point on it that we need to cut off. So now I'm going to group those. And now it's flat on the bottom. So I need to change its dimensions to 21 by 21 with a height of 10. So I'm going to make this 21, this 21, and this 10. Now, I want this to be raised above the work plane 5 centimeters because it's going to sit right on top of that. So I can click here and start to pull it up, and I'm just going to make sure this guy right here is 5. And now I'm going to center these 2 pieces. So I'm going to align, I'm going to center, and you can see he sits right there perfectly in that little divot on the top of my pumpkin, and I'm going to group him. Oh, nope, see, I missed a step. So, no big deal. I'm going to Control Z to undo it. Now, I'm going to move this guy over here. I've got it. Let me Control Z to undo that. I got to duplicate him. So I'm going to duplicate him 2 other times. So 1, 2. So now I'm going to move one of these over here. I'm going to move these other two out of the way. And now I'm going to align this again and then group it. Excuse me. So I'm going to align center, center, and then I'm going to group. So now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to change its dimensions to 15 by 15. I'm going to change just my length and my width to 15 by 15. So I'm making it smaller. Sorry. And I'm going to raise him up to 12 millimeters above the work plane. So I'm going to start to drag him. I'm going to click that and make that 12. So now I'm going to select, let me move this over here. I'm going to select those two objects. I'm going to center this center there, center this there. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I don't want this video to be too long. So let me move this guy back over here. I've got to rotate him. So I'm going to rotate him clockwise 22.5. So I'm going to hit this arrow right here. I'm going to type in negative 22.5 because I want him to move to the right. So that is a negative movement. So there he goes. He is now, get out here, rotated. So now I'm going to align him center by center. And I'm going to click off to my right. I'm going to click on that part. I'm going to move it over 1 centimeter. And now he is perfectly lined up. And I'm going to select and group. Now, this guy, I'm going to move him over here. I'm going to change his dimensions to 10 by 10. I'm going to leave the height the same. So I'm going to change from 21 to 10 and 21 to 10. And now I'm going to rotate him 45 degrees clockwise. So let me scroll in here a little bit so you can see this better. So I'm going to click on him. I'm going to click this back arrow. And since I want to go to the right, I'm going to do negative 45. So he has moved all the way to the right. So I'm now going to select these. I'm going to align center. Oh, nope, I forgot to do something. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me go back to that. I need to raise him up. So I'm going to raise him up to 19 millimeters above the work plane. So I'm going to make this 19. And now I'm going to rotate him 45 degrees. Let me move him over here so I can see my numbers. I'm going to rotate him negative 45 degrees. So he goes clockwise. What did I just do here? Negative 45. There we go. So now I'm going to align him center by center, and I have to move him over 6 centimeters to the right, or 6 millimeters to the right, to get him to line up perfectly. So I click on him and I count over, right arrow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there he is lined up perfectly. I'm going to group him, and I now have the top of my pumpkin and the bottom of my pumpkin, and I am almost there. One last thing I want you to do is I want you to put some type of face, your initials, your last name, letter, name, Happy Halloween, whatever you want it to be. I want you to cut that into the front of this pumpkin. I'm going to make a separate video to show you how I do that. with a few little tricks there. And you can watch that separately because I don't want this, I don't want it to be too terribly long. So hopefully this helps you walk through it. If you need help, you can pause it, go back, look at different parts of it, and it will help answer any questions you may have about making your pumpkin. So good luck.